Hello everybody, my name is Dan, aka Duckface Games, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Riven builds. This is a video that I've been promising for the past couple days on the internet through Reddit and things like that, r/Riven mains. I will link that in the description, as well as my Twitch stream, which you should totally go check out, which as you can see with my overlay and in the bottom left, down there, you're gonna see that's my Twitch link. Go ahead and give that a follow if you enjoy the video as well, because I do stream there every now and again. Just be aware, because I'm extremely salty and I rage. I'm definitely a Riven main for sure. But yeah, this is the stream overlay that I use while I'm in the client, waiting for, you know, champion select and everything like that. So, with that being said, today I'm going to talk about builds, and this is a video, again, it took me a couple days to finish it it's taking me a couple days to do it, because there's a specific way I want to do it, and I didn't really know how, but now I know how I want to do it, and I think that this video is going to be twice as long probably as the last one, maybe even longer than that, so sit tight, get a snack or something like that, because this one's going to be quite a minute. So the first section that we're going to go through is boots, and obviously you get your tier 1 boots, and I'm going to put in the only boots that I think right now that make any sense to get on Riven are going to be Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Merc Treads, or it's going to be Ninja Tabby. And now the reason why I wanted to start it off with boots is because I think boots are an extremely situational item, and it's the biggest deviation from the norm every game, because you're never gonna buy the same boots over and over and over again. There's no core boots. It depends on what you're playing against. So now there's a couple situations here in which boots are really good. Now granted, when I saw the last video and we took inspiration second, I did take the boots enchantment, so the 300 gold is kind of gone. However, in some lanes where you're actually, you know, you're going to win, I suggest that you take sorcery for second, and that's something that I didn't really touch on in the last video, which I will be sure to touch on more in the matchups section for those runes. So the matchup section will show good rune pages for each different matchup that I can talk about. By the way, comment below the comment of the video. Just let me know which matchups you guys are having the biggest trouble with, because I want to make a couple focal point matchups that I think are really misplayed and misused for items, and then we can talk about more matchups along the way. But anyway, so for this, you're obviously, like I said, if there's a lane where you can really early snowball, it's a good idea to get Warhammer, Kindle Gem, and then Lucidity boots, because then you'll be pretty much at 40% once you build Black Cleaver. But yeah, so Lucidity is pretty good for early snowball when you can do it, but the only reason why I don't really go them very often, and almost never in fact, is because of the fact that you just get so much cooldown from items and runes now that it doesn't really make sense to spam cooldown reduction on your boots when you can just get a resistance, which will make you actually carry the lane so much harder. If you have cooldown boots, you'll carry so much harder because of the fact that you have resistances, and like, you know, these also, and here's the thing, you guys might not know this, they give tenacity, which reduces almost every CC in the entire game by 30%, and then these reduce 12% of basic attack damage. So against champions like Aurelia and things like that, and early Ninja Tabby is not such a bad idea. So yeah, these are the three that I can see. The other ones I don't really see, like Swifties, unless you're like super ahead and you just want to try something. Swifties don't really make sense, and obviously the other boots, they don't really make sense, do they? But yeah, so that is going to be the boots block. Now, here's the thing about boots, right? If you're against an Akali, a thing that I like to do a lot is I like to rush Hex Drinker and then get Mercury Treads while I'm building in my other items. So I don't actually get the boot enchantment when I'm against champions like Akali, because I want to rush that resistance. But sometimes, even depending on their team comp, it might not actually be worth it to get boots. And this is the thing that I think is the most mispurchased item in the entire game in terms of Riven players, is boots. And in terms of players in general, is boots. Because a lot of times people will get the boots for their laning phase, and then they don't really get boots that are really good for the entire game as a whole. So if you look at it and you're playing against an Aurelia, you might think, well, this is really good for me to get Ninja Tabby against, right? But then their mid laners Ahri, their jungler's Echo, their AD carry is, let's say, Heimerdinger, and their support is Nami. Those later on in those team fights, the Ninja Tabbies aren't going to help you basically at all, because that's 4 AP members of the enemy team, and almost none of them use anything with auto attacks except for maybe Echo. But you got to really look at the enemy team comp. You got to really think outside of just your lane. You have to think, when I'm in these team fights, am I going to reduce the most damage by taking damage away from auto attacks, or am I going to reduce the most damage by having less CC on me? So if they have a really CC heavy team, they have the Malphite, they have, you know, Aurelia, they have the Poppy, get Merc Treads. And against all tanks, Merc Treads are the best. Why? Because I guarantee you, if they have a brain, if they have half a brain, every single tank is going to build a Bomby Cinder into a Sunfire Cape, and that does magic damage. So it's actually going to greatly reduce the magic damage dealt to you and the CC duration, so they won't be as oppressive. Now, granted, a Poppy, a Maokai, you know, an Ornn, they're still going to be pretty oppressive, but they're not going to be as oppressive, and you can even as much as short trade with them, which I know is insane. You might actually be able to short trade with them if you get Mercury Treads, and it might not just hold you hostage in your top lane where you're getting pushed into and then just dove constantly. So yeah, Merc Treads are really good. You have to look at those a lot if you don't already, and Ninja Tappy are also super good. Again, like I said, Lucidity Boots are really situational, and maybe depending on your playstyle, you really like Lucidity Boots. One strategy I do like for cooldown boots is to get them early, and then later on when you have 40% without them, just sell them and trade them for Merc Treads or for Ninja Tappy. It's a strategy that I've seen other players use, and I think it's very solid, actually, and I've used it a couple times myself, especially when you do, like if you want to do the crit build, you want to get like Essence Reaver into you know, BCDD or something like that. I think that's really good. I think it's really strong to do that, and then build the cooldown boots, and then later on get the resistances, because the early damage and early cooldown rotation of having your ult, you know, less than, you know, every minute, less than 60 seconds by, you know, 10 minutes into the game is pretty good, and it actually will up your DPS by a ridiculous amount later on in the game, and will allow you to carry and push your advantage in other lanes, because if you ult your lane, push out 2 waves, and then go to another lane, ult, kill them, that your damage is just insane by that point anyway. You're a terror that's running around the entire map. So you really have to consider your options. You have to look at more than just your lane. And I think that's going to be probably the theme of this video, is don't just build for your lane. Build what's going to help you push your advantage through the whole game, and not allow the enemy team to just get easy picks on you and easy kills. Because if you build the right way, it's going to be really, really hard for them to kill you. Even if it's a 1v3, even if it's a 1v4, things like that, it's just going to be pretty difficult for them to, if you itemize the right way, for them to do anything if you get ahead. So that's basically what is the most important. So for that block, that's boots. If you guys have any questions about situational boot builds, or certain things that you have been noticing with the boots that you think might be good to know for Riven players, or just top lane players in general, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for the boots section. We're going to be moving on now to the core. Okay guys, so now we're going to be talking about the core build of Riven. We talked about the boots that you're going to be building. Now let's talk about the core. Let's talk about the build that's going to be mostly every single one of your games. The items that you could build, the items that you should be building. Yeah, so let's get into it. So that's what a standard build might look like, and then obviously you finish that off and get a Maul of Mount Mortius for once you get this. But so the reason why I put Hex Drinker in there like that is because of the fact that I think that Hex Drinker early is pretty good. The reason why I'm also showing myself dragging these items in is because you can kind of see, like, I guess what's going on. I don't know, it just kind of looks cool for the video, I think. I don't know, whatever. So anyway, yeah, so basically, the core of your build is going to look like this. You build Caulfield's Warhammer first, and then Kindle Gem, and then sometimes Resistance Boots or whatever. But for the most part, I think the build is as follows. I think you're going to start off with a Caulfield's Warhammer, go into a Kindle Gem, finish off Black Cleaver. Then you go back and do Death's Dance, and then you finish off your boots. And then you go Sterix Gauge afterwards. Is something I really, really like. I think Sterix Gauge is super strong right now. And then, yeah, then you go Tiamat, right? Sometimes. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Because there's actually some cases I don't see very many, if any, Riven players at all that are building Tiamat and there's some cases where it's actually not bad. So I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, your first 2 items, pretty much every game right now should be Black Cleaver Death Stance. And the reason why is because it's 30% cooldown reduction. It gives you a lot of health. You don't really die. You know, the reduced damage from Death Stance is going to allow you to win a lot of trades against champions that you really should not be winning trades against. So basically every single thing that both of these items give you is gold efficient with the champion that you're playing. Pretty much every time it's going to be gold efficient by far the most to get DCB or DDBC like that. I think Caulfield's Warhammer first, and the reason why it's good first is because of the fact that it gives you that extra AD that you can do to win the lane plus a 10% cooldown reduction. Now, there's something that I'm going to teach you guys today with this build that I think is really good. That I think is really, really good. If you're against a champion like Akali, or you're against a champion like Ryze or something like that, or Vladimir even, a champion that's kind of tough to lane against, you should go Hex Drinker and then Phage first after the Hex Drinker, and then you get Merc Treads. And you might be thinking, but where's all the CDR at? And the thing is you don't really need the CDR because their cooldowns, again, Akali can kind of just spam her abilities, Ryze can kind of spam his abilities. You want to do short trades anyway. And the thing is that it's really conducive to safe play if you don't get low cooldowns thinking you can constantly just run in and sacrifice all of your HP by building damage. If you build damage and you have decently low cooldowns, you're kind of just wasting your time. However, if you build Hex Drinker into Phage, what you're doing is you're giving yourself resistances, and then you're giving yourself health. And the thing that nobody knows about the passive of Phage is when your basic attack gives you 20 movement speed for 2 seconds, and a kill grants you 60 movement speed. So what that means is you're getting health and AD, and oh, by the way, if you auto attack a minion, you can walk up and catch them after they blow their whole combo on you, right? Like an Akali will walk up and blow her whole combo on you, and then we'll try to walk away. You just auto attack a minion after you like stayed away from her combo, and you walk up to her and you do a short trade into her and then walk away, because your basic attack gives you a way in and a way out on top of your kit, because you already have 4 movement spells. You have the 3 stacks of your E, and then the 3 stacks of your Q, and then you have your E to get away. So you have 4 movement spells essentially. And on top of that, this passive is really good, especially for early laning, which is something that a lot of Rivens don't pay attention to, and I think is actually super strong on the champion. So what I'll do is I'll build Hex Drinker into Phage. And you might ask, well, how'd you get this idea? I actually watched Adrian Riven lane against Akali. I think it was Revenge when he played Akali top in Twitch Rivals. He did this, and he actually had a fairly easy laning phase against him and was able to like get out of the laning phase without too much problems. And I think that's really good. Now, Merc Treads with the Akali and Ryze, and I guess, you know, with the Kennen, especially the Kennen, Merc Treads are pretty good. Again, if they're the only AP damage dealer and their team doesn't have that much CC, then But if they have a good amount of CC throughout the team, maybe like a Galio mid or something like that, and their jungler is like a Warwick or somebody that CCs you, like tenacity on those boots are really good, because Hex Drinker and then into Phage will give you more than enough health and resistance to get through whatever situation you need, unless you like play like a monkey early game. But other than that, like that build is a really strong start. And then after that, you finish Cleaver, and then you build Death Stance in its entirety while you're mixing in the boots, and then you go Sterix Gauge. Okay, but here's where this item comes into play. Yumu's Ghostblade. You might be looking at that and thinking, why is there a random Yumu's Ghostblade? So I'll explain that now. If you're against an Akali or a Ryze or against a Kennen or a champion like that that's super oppressive, that's super hard for you to play against in the early laning phase, once you build these 2 items, if their team is squishy and you build a Yumu's Ghostblade right after that, it actually gives you so much engage, and then the Black Cleaver passive with Death Stance passive will give you all your disengage. So you use this to get in there and do a ton of damage with this. You'll actually blow up squishies just that much faster than if you were to get Sterix Gauge, plus it's 300 gold cheaper than Sterix Gauge, meaning that it opens you up for more options later on because of the fact that if you win a team fight and you spend 300 less gold, then you can still get this if you need it. You can finish this even if you need it. Or you can even get this, or you can, look into other items. Maybe you look into something that's a little tanky or whatever. Maybe get a tank item or something like that. Whatever is giving you trouble throughout the game. But basically, this is going to be every build that you do, is this, right? So Yumu's Ghostblade is going to be thrown in there if they have a squishy team. You don't really need the Sterix Gauge to survive right away. You might use it later, but maybe you don't need it right now. That's super good. That's actually super good, especially if you're blowing them up really fast. If you're blowing them up really fast, then you don't need the lifeline passive of Sterix Gauge. Okay? You don't need it. But yeah, so upon taking at least 400 to 1800 damage based on level within 5 seconds, gain a shield for 75% of your bonus health. After 0.75 seconds, the shield decays over 3 seconds. So what is also good is to build Jarim's Fist, and then look at this passive. Another thing that people don't understand. Killing a unit grants 5 maximum health. It stacks up to 20 times. If you're playing against a Fiora, and you use the passive where minions dying near you give you health, and then later on in the game you use Jarim's Fist, that's 200 extra HP. So I sometimes will use Bone Plating and then use, I think it's called Overgrowth, I can't remember, but it's when minions die near you, or you kill minions, basically, it gives you health. I think that Jarim's Fist into that is actually super good. So I think that, again, is another choice that you have moving forward, is to use your runes a little bit more defensively, depending on if you have trouble with the matchup. Considering that Fiora is in such a strong spot right now, I used to do okay against her. She's a lot harder to beat now, because of the fact that she's so strong right now. But that's okay, because you can itemize and rune against that. It's something to think about. But yeah, so you can, so another thing that you can do, again, like the Fiora matchup, if you really want to, you can get Rush, Phage, and then do Tabbies or something like that, But I think for those really oppressive AP laners, Hex Shrinker into Phage, into Resistance Boots, not bad. Or Hex Shrinker into Phage, into BC, and then get Resistance Boots later. Not bad at all. It's definitely not a bad matchup. And most of the time when you're against an oppressive AP top laner, who is going to be the person like Kennen or whatever that carries their team fights, Merc Treads are actually a good most of the time the option that you choose. Because unless their team gets a super fed ADC and has like maybe jungle or something like that, which is not very common, Ninja Tabby are pretty good, basically, if they have a lot of damage. But you're going to find yourself going Merc Treads a lot of the time, because the tenacity is super good for team fights, plus the fact that AP damage dealers are just so annoying as Riven, and they're going to be what stops you most of the time, like, your Morganas or your Luxes. How many times have we run into a team fight and then gotten binded by Lux or Morgana? It's super frustrating, right? So Merc Treads is going to reduce the impact of that on your late game. So Tiamat. We're going to talk about Tiamat. Why Tiamat's on your screen. If you're against a champion like Ornn early game that does not push waves really well, and you notice, oh, what the hell? And I'm sorry. And you notice that they don't push waves very well, and you notice that the mid laner is very gankable, or if you put a bunch of wards in the enemy's topside jungle, you can use Tiamat, and if you jungle track really well, what you can do is hard push waves and then go take jungle camps, which will put the top laner and the jungler behind, because people aren't that good at CSing under turret. It's actually harder than CSing normally. So you can hard shove waves into them with Tiamat, not worry about trading, and then go take Raptors or something like that. But you have to, with this strategy, make sure that you're tracking the jungler. If the jungler's not bottom side and you get caught on Raptors and the mid laner collapses on you, that's a free death. So you have to make sure that you know what you're doing. You can't just haphazardly walk through the jungle every time you push. The only time you push out the lane really hard is because of when you jungle track. So when you see that they're bottom side doing a gank or something like that, you then Tiamat and hard push the wave, and then you take the enemy jungler's camps. So that's when you do that. But just notice that with Tiamat, you're going to be automatically pushing the wave into whoever, because it's doing AoE damage, which is going to make the waves take more damage as a whole, which means that your waves will auto push into them. So just be careful when using the strategy that you're playing it correctly. It is kind of a high skill cap strategy to use, but it's only because of the fact that certain things that are simply fundamental in the game, it escapes some people, which is fine and understandable. But Tiamat is actually super good. Again, if they don't push well, so not like Shen or something like that, but like I said, like a Maokai or Ornn, you can kind of do that. Now again, once you hit like level 6 and 7 and they start maxing out Q and E, and then Orin starts maxing out his W, they start pushing waves really well. But this is for the early game strategy so that you can get ahead, because obviously you sitting in a lane against an Orin or a Maokai is not the strategy. It's just not. You have to either roam or take topside jungle because you're going to be behind the entire time. So that's just, again, another situational thing. Now we're going to be talking about GA. When do you buy GA? And when do you finish Maul? Are like the two final thoughts that I really have, because I really don't feel like there's much deviation outside of these items that's very viable right now. I just don't think it is. So yeah, that's just basically like in terms of viability, like that's all your items right there. That's really what's viable to me on this champion right now and what makes the most sense. So finishing Maul, the only time that you really finish Maul is if you do Hex Drinker, but you still find yourself like having a really tough time. That extra shield and whatnot is good. The only thing is spending that extra 1950 gold is kind of iffy. But since Warhammer is already going to be in your build, sometimes you just finish Maul. But I think finishing Death's Dance is actually better, because you'll notice like Akali, Ryze, Kennen are my three biggest examples right now, because they're like three champions that are super impressive against you, are really strong. The thing is that the Death's Dance actually mitigates more damage than the Magic Shield, because the Magic Shield only mitigates like 150 200 damage, or 350 magic damage within 5 seconds, which is really only like 150 to 200 damage considering how much damage they actually burst you for. It doesn't really mitigate very much. And it's on a long cooldown. 90 seconds is a really long cooldown, which will actually be a longer cooldown than your ult. So I mean, yeah, you get extra AD and lifesteal, but really this magic shield that gives you 110 to 280. Like I said, it was only like 150 to 200 on this, but with the damage mitigation, that's a bleed effect over 3 seconds with Death Dance. It actually is much better for you to get Death Dance because it will mitigate more damage over time. So yeah, and then you're also healing. You're healing because of the fact that it's a lifesteal, which gives you more sustain in lane, whereas this will only give you sustain for the 5 seconds or whatever it is, however long it is in the passive. So you gotta look at it. You gotta look at it like that. Like what is this giving me? What is the benefit of doing this? Why am I building this item? So I'm not only just telling you what to build and why you build it. I'm telling you the situations in which you build it and the reasons why it's going to continue to be good. Okay? And now moving forward, when do I build an early GA? The only time you build a GA immediately after Black Cleaver and Death's Dance is if you're carrying super, super hard and you need to engage. The only time that you're going to be in a hard engage as Riven is if the rest of your team is kind of not doing very well, and you need to like go in and take out 2 people and give them time to like come in and collapse on the play. Now, if you don't think they're going to respond, or you have a team that's not really paying attention to the map very well, the strategy doesn't really work. It depends. It's more for like higher elos. Like I would say even like gold. I would give it to like gold. I see that in gold they start to like notice things on the map a lot better. Gold and above. If you have confidence that you can come in and get a couple kills real quick, and then the GA will pop, and while that's popping and they're all sitting on top of you, your team will come in and finish the job. 5v3. Then you do GA. Most of the time though, I just build a stopwatch and then go into Sterak's Gauge. So my build most of the time would be Warhammer into Kindle Gem and then finish up Black Cleaver, and then it would be finish up my boots and DD at the same time, depending on how it works. Or sometimes, or if I'm really ahead, it would be DD first to get the damage, because obviously with your mobility as a champion, you don't need to really rush into tier 2 boots, and then it's going to be Sterak's Gauge. And now the reason why Sterak's Gauge is so strong is because now you have the damage mitigation of Death's Dance with the attack, with the lifesteal of it, and then with the passive of Sterak's Gauge, you're now getting extra lifesteal on top of getting health, and the bonus health that you get from both Jarim's Fist into Sterak's Gauge and Black Cleaver is going to give your passive much more power, plus you're getting, with the passive again, extra lifesteal, and it's making it harder for you to kill, plus you get that shield. So basically what it's turning you into is a giant bruiser that's hard to kill, but you also do a ton of damage because Death's Dance and Black Cleaver give you a bunch of damage, and you get some good clean AD. Sterak's Gauge is one of the most gold efficient items in the game right now because it gives you everything you need. Those 3 items are so good with your kit right now, and so strong with the things that make you strong because they synergize with Conqueror. So in extended fights, you're going to survive. You're going to be able to jump in the middle of a team and just kill them all. Now, if they're super squishy, the reason that you go U-moves is because you can just kill them with one rotation of your spells, then the next rotation of your spells, you kill the rest of them. But you also have to be more smart and tactful, like going in and out. But make sure that you're not engaging. That's the thing that's the most important, is most of the time you don't want to engage these fights. You want the enemy team to engage on you, or you want your team to engage for you, and then you come in and sweep it up later. That's the biggest thing that's the most important about this build, is that you just walking in and dying and then popping all the passes of your items is just not very good. It's not something that you should be doing. So that is going to be the core section. If you have any more questions or any other items that you think are viable or are good or are being used on Riven right now for the core of top lane Riven, then let me know. The next and final section is going to be jungle and post-game full build builds. I'll be right back. Okay, guys. This is going to be the jungle build and the full build. So, meaning after your full build, what kind of things can you do to push yourself into the later game here? So, you're going to see and notice here that the build isn't much different. The only thing is that I just wanted to gloss over this real quick because I think it's something that isn't really talked about because most people don't do it, because it's like, obviously she's not that great in the jungle. But if you're a Riven one trick and you feel like she's your best champion, then you just queue top and jungle or top and mid and you play Riven. The only reason that I'm not going to be doing a builds guide for mid is because it does not change. The build is still the same. The only thing that you would change is you can sometimes build early game lethality with U-moves and build that first, but very rarely do I do that. I just build my normal build actually because it's super good. Yeah, so the jungle build, I'm just going to quickly talk about this. It's actually going to be more about the post full build thing that you would do. But anyway, so moving into this, you definitely take warrior 100% of the time. Sometimes I would take rejuvenation beads instead of a refillable potion when I need Tiamat, if I'm against something like Warwick or whatever, and I really need a better early game clear. So yeah, my first clear is going to be pretty tough. If you don't know how to do the fast combo, then Riven jungle is really just kind of not the greatest. But so if I'm against somebody that clears really fast, a Kayn, a Warwick, a Yi, somebody I need to get that map pressure, I'm going to do everything I can to rush Tiamat to get on the map. You need to get on the map. And especially with your mobility and your spells, it actually helps you get ahead of them in time after early jungle. The first clear, they're going to be faster than you, they're going to leave with more health. But beyond that, you might actually be able to come back and start getting on the map in better time than them. Which is why I like U-moves sometimes, depending on the enemy's comp. If the enemy comp is, again, pretty squishy, U-moves is not a bad option after you get Black Cleaver. Black Cleaver needs to happen after Warrior. You need the cooldown reduction to clear your camps the fastest possible way. So Cleaver is almost 100% of the time the second build. I don't even get into Death Stands until after Cleaver, almost ever, if ever at all. And then you'll see me build probably a U-moves Ghost Blade, maybe an Umbral Glaive. Umbral Glaive is actually really good in the jungle right now. I'll actually put... I'll put that on here. Umbral Glaive is actually not terrible right now because of the vision control that it gives you on top of the lethality that you get for that as well, so that you can make sure that your own jungle is not being warded, and then you can it push the advantage of vision control on the enemy team. And then also for your trinket, which is something that you don't build top, which is the only reason that I'm elaborating on it right now, is you build Oracle Lens every single time, and make sure you get lots and lots of control words. That's the thing that is super important, is making sure that you get a bunch of control words, and make sure that you use your Oracle Lenses, and then the Umbral Glaive will then become a lot more useful. However, I just think that building Cleaver, because the Tiamat's a big investment. Warriors, obviously the jungle items are pretty expensive, and then after that you build Cleaver. After that investment, do you want to spend 2,400 on Glaive and not really have any use until the item is full, or use every component of Death's Dance, which the components add up to 2,000 that you would really need, because obviously pickaxe is like whatever kind of early, but Caulfield's Warhammer and Vampiric Scepter are both, they combine for 1,000 gold cost, which is 1400 less, and they give you a lot more utility with their build path, because if you look in this isn't going to give you barely anything, whereas Call of Duty's Warhammer helps you clear your jungle faster and all that. So you got to look at, like, okay, is it okay to take this lull where for 2400 gold's worth of clears I'm just gonna kind of be okay, whereas with Death Stance, everything you're building in Death Stance is super useful for you and gives you a lot of utility and helps you clear better, but the end product might not be as good for vision control and in terms of being able to kill people as fast. Now, granted, you still do build Death Stance later on, so that's pretty strong and pretty important. But yeah, so that is going to be Riven Jungle. And now the post game, just because I want to make sure I talk about this. Sometimes you get the Elixir of Wrath, but most of the time I get the Elixir of Iron because it gives you tenacity and health, which, by the way, that bonus health counts towards your passive for Sterix Gauge, which will actually give you more damage in total and also give you more lifesteal and more of a shield. So basically, it actually synergizes with all that, meaning it's a lot better. However, Elixir of Wrath gives you 30 AD and Bloodlust, which is dealing physical damage to champions, heals for 15% of the damage dealt, which still synergizes with your kit, but only when you get lower health, whereas with these items, the extra health will allow you to play longer without having to pop the passives of all your items and everything that you're using. So let me just drag these items back up here so that we can look at the core of your build. But yeah, that's what you're going to be building right there. That's your core. Those are the items that are the strongest right now and by far the most viable after watching a lot. I don't know exactly how many, but a lot of Riven games throughout the last couple weeks. I've seen over 100 VODs of Riven from a lot of different Riven players. Watched a lot of Twitch on current high-level Riven players, and these guys, these are just the items that everybody's building right now. This is the build that everybody's building right now. This is what's the strongest on Riven. And it's not even just my opinion going into it. It's just a matter of fact at this point. This is what everybody is building. This is the strongest items for sure. And in Riven Jungle, these are the things, like I said, the things I was talking about before. Those are the things that I've seen that were strong. So that's your, your post-game, your post-late game build. The only time that you'd ever trade in boots is if you get a Last Whisper item. Now, this is something that I do want to talk about real quick, because Last Whisper items sometimes are useful. The only reason that I didn't put it into the core build, and the reason why I'm talking about post full build times where it's a really long game, the thing is with full build normally being Black Cleaver, Death Stance, a Hex Drinker, a GA, your boots, and a Sterix Gauge. Those are your 6 items, right? And then obviously you go into a mall. Sometimes you're going to have to trade those out. And the only time that I ever use these is when the enemy team has a tank that just won't die, and it's the reason we lose every single fight, for 1. Or for 2, when I'm playing against a Vladimir, late game, Executioner's Calling is super strong. Into the Last Whisper item is super strong. I always forget what this one's called. The thing won't pop up, it sucks. Last Whisper, will this one pop up? There it goes, Mortal Reminder. Mortal Reminder gives you armor penetration and physical damage and inflicts grievous wounds, which means that they don't heal as much. So if you have a late game healer that's really strong, something like that. But also, I go into Lord Dominic's when they itemize, they have a tank that just won't die, and they have a lot of armor built against you later on in the game. I think that the 35% armor penetration, that's a lot. It actually does help you out a lot. It's a very gold efficient item. I do throw it in there. It's pretty situational most of the time, although I will say later on in the game it's definitely more gold efficient than maybe like a Yumu's or something like that, which is why I don't build Yumu's almost ever, except for, like I said, if they have a super squishy team. But if they have tanks and stuff like that, Lord Dominic's Regards is definitely the better build there. And that's right there is where I'm going to cut it off. I don't really have anything else to offer here. I really feel like that's pretty much everything that you could possibly really be building on Riven right now to make any sense. If you guys feel that I missed anything, left anything out whatsoever, or have any questions about certain items that you think might be good, let's talk about it. Put some comments down, and I'll go ahead and do my best to answer as many as possible with as detailed as possible. I will answer them all, but I have to get, I'm going to see how much detail I can really get into to give you your answer, so that you actually leave this video feeling as though you've learned something or other, and you feel like, it did help you in some way, regardless of your level. You might maybe think of, oh, wow, that's a strategy I've never heard of before, or something like that. So yeah, like I said, if you have anything that challenges you, feel like anything I've said was incorrect or whatever, feel free, put it down. We can talk about it, and we'll see what we can learn today. So thank you very much for watching. As promised, this is my Riven builds video. If you have anything left, like I said, feel free to comment. Feel free to send me a message. Follow my Twitch. Subscribe, like it up. You guys already know. Thank you very much, and have a great day.